Good evening. Welcome to the news at 7 on NTA International. We're live in Abuja and I'm Ruth Aguela. Let's start with the headlines. Nigeria and United Nations launch basket fund to provide financial, logistics and technical support for fight against COVID-19. Presidential task force clears air on intervention of Chinese in fight against the disease. Plus, President Muhammadu Buhari approves 500 billion naira stimulus package to keep the economy going with fall in the price of crude oil. And here are the full details. Nigeria and the United Nations have launched a basket fund to provide financial, logistics and technical support to Nigeria in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Chairman of the Presidential Task Force and Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, while launching the fund in Abuja, said it will complement efforts already initiated by the federal government to contain and manage the pandemic. Let's hear from Mitari Ikben.
At a time when social distancing is mandatory to contain COVID-19, nations have also seen the need to pull together to fight the pandemic, which has disrupted social systems and threatened the health and wealth of nations. The Nigeria UN Basket Fund, a product of bilateral talks, is designed to help multilateral donors channel their finances and investments to the Presidential Task Force with a view to strengthening the national response to the pandemic.
The one COVID-19 basket fund is robust and is capable of rapid procurement of equipment and consumables, as well as supporting socio-economic interventions, and assure you that this will spur Nigeria to work harder.
As commendations keep pouring in over Nigeria's formidable and coordinated response to the coronavirus pandemic, global partners are motivated to support the national strategy.
Here again, I call on the international community. Debt alleviation must be a priority, including immediate waivers on interest payments for 2020.
Already we have paid 1.2 million euro to UNICEF, and I expect to be able to announce significant additional support for the fund very soon.
The Nigeria United Nations COVID-19 Basket Fund will comprise of donations in cash and logistics expected from bilateral and multilateral partners and will, among other things, mitigate the socio-economic effects on the poor and vulnerable in the country. In Abuja, Mitari Ikben, NTA News.
In a related development, Chinese assistance to Nigeria in the fight against COVID-19 is in the areas of technical support and provision of personal protection equipment, but not to take over the nation's healthcare system. Chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Boss Mustafa, who made this clarification at the daily briefing, appealed to Nigerian medical professionals not to misconstrue the assistance from China. Again, Mitari Ikman will tell us more.
Since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic globally, almost all countries are seeking any form of assistance they could get from other nations. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 believes Nigeria is not exempted and is receiving assistance.
The support coming from China is a corporate social responsibility initiated by CCECC. Over 150,000 pieces of assorted personal protective equipment, as well as 50 medical ventilators.
The chairman of the task force also dismissed insinuations that Chinese doctors are coming into the country.
The Chinese doctors are not accredited by the Nigerian Medical Association, so they cannot practice in Nigeria. So I don't see why the fear is.
Nigerians returning to the country and contacts that have been traced were advised not to mislead health workers by hiding their travel history.
We did truly have cases of people who gave false phone numbers or false addresses, and others who did not give a history of the fact that they were coming from abroad, therefore reducing the possibility of the doctors making the right decision, and that is very dangerous. We do not want that to happen, and in fact, you must realize that there are avenues for prosecution.
The task force believes its objective of containing the coronavirus with the lockdown of Lagos, Ogun, and the FCT is being achieved stressing that results in the coming days will determine the next line of action. In Abuja, Mitaire Ikben, NTA News.
And latest from the judiciary indicates that Nollywood actor and producer Funke Akindele Bello and her husband Abdurrashid Bello have been found guilty for violating the social distancing order put in place by the federal government. Consequently, they have been sentenced to 14 days of community service of 3 hours per day, excluding Saturday and Sunday.
They are also to pay a fine of 100,000 naira each in a judgment passed at the Magistrate Court, Ogba, Lagos. Each of them must visit 10 important public places within the state to educate the public on consequences of non-compliance with the restriction order. They are also to submit the names and phone numbers of every person who attended the party. The couple would also be placed on isolation by the state government to determine their COVID-19 status. Failure to abide with the court judgment and directives will attract more severe punishment. Funke Akindele, popularly referred to as Jennifer, and her husband were accused of holding a birthday party at their residence on Sunday with more than 20 people in attendance, contrary to the social distancing order. The suspects were arrested after a viral video of a large number of persons.
Chuks Akamadu, a human rights lawyer, to shed more light on the legal implications of violating the federal government's cessation of movement order put in place to curb the spread of COVID-19. Thank you very much, Mr. Akamadu. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, Nigerians.
Okay, I'm sure you're following the trending news of Funke Akindele and her husband, who have been sentenced to 14 days of community service for violating federal government's social distancing order. What's your take on that?
Well, foremost, I would like to say that what happened today is unfortunate. Unfortunate in the sense that Funke Akindele happens to be an export commodity of the finest hue for this nation until today. She had actually paid her dues as a major player in Nigeria's Nollywood. Be that as it may, what has happened today again shows that the law is no respecter of persons. The law is such that whoever that goes contrary to it must be forced to face its wrath. Yet it's unfortunate and indeed regrettable that Funke and her husband breached this extant law of the land. But again, I think maybe the Nigerian populace needed this celebrity case that promises to be a celebrated case in the days ahead to really appreciate the enormity of the COVID-19 plague that has come upon this nation and indeed the rest of the world. For me, everyone, I haven't seen that this COVID-19 lockdown order is applicable to everyone, irrespective of one's status. Now, should draw a lesson from what has happened to Funke and the husband, and then realize that indeed it is now a matter of law for us to obey the law to the letter. Okay. It is not a time for us to bring in politics, sentiments, or things like that. This is not time for rhetoric, because what's at stake is the life of human beings. So every Nigerian should, going by the outcome of today's ruling, realize that we all owe it a sacred duty to ourselves and indeed the Nigerian society to self-isolate.
Okay, Mr. Akamadu, sorry to interject there. You're already telling us the lessons every Nigerian should learn from this incident. But in view of the nature of the deadly virus, would you say that the punishment, the kind of punishment meted on the couple, is commensurate to, the offense?
Well, it's not a matter of opinion. The law is very, very explicit concerning this. The Lagos State Public Health Law is very explicit on this and what's the applicable punishment for it. So in the wisdom of the magistrate, what the law has said is, okay, number one, each of them should pay 100,000 naira fine. Number 2, 14 days of community service, 3 hours daily. Number 3, that they should also provide names and phone numbers of those who attended that unlawful party. And then in the midst of the 14 days community service, they are required to go from one important place in Lagos to another at a minimum of 10 important places in Lagos, educating the people on the need for them to fully comply with the lockdown order, and then the applicable consequences for those who flout that order. So it's not really a matter of opinion. The law is settled on that.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Chuksa Kamadu. He's a human rights lawyer talking about what happened today and the judgment of Funke Akindele and her husband. But still more on the judiciary, there is a remarkable reduction in the normal operations of courts in line with the efforts to stem the spread of COVID-19. However, judiciary correspondent Vera Chumuba, who visited some courts in the Federal Capital Territory, reports that there was remarkable compliance with COVID-19 regulations, resulting in given preference to urgent matters which were heard. She also reports that the Chief Justice, Ibrahim Tanko Mohammed, has extended the suspension of court sittings till further notice. All right, let's take
Justice of Nigeria, Ibrahim Tanko Mohammed, has suspended court sittings in Nigeria except in matters that are urgent and time-bound. This is in a bid to curtail the spread of the deadly coronavirus, which is currently ravaging the world. In normal times, this courtroom would have been filled to capacity with journalists, lawyers, and litigants, but today it is empty. The court operations at this critical time are in line with COVID-19 regulation issued by President Muhammad Buhari. Regulation 7 provides the courts with some level of exception on court operations. A visit to some courts in the FCT indicates a remarkable level of compliance and awareness with measures put in place to safeguard, balance the health and safety of court personnel and litigants. Though the Federal High Court, Maitama Abuja, is scheduled to sit Tuesday, 7th of April, the Court of Appeal Abuja Division has its cases spread across the various courtrooms, including the ceremonial court, in observance of social distancing.
Like the matter I appeared today, I sat alone in front. My colleagues on the other side sat alone in front. As you can see, you enter here, you will see the water, the sanitizers, and lawyers are observing it.
The experience here this morning is that the court is not congested. Social distancing has been maintained.
The premises of the Court of Appeal today shows compliance with the directives given.
At the Supreme Court, the courtrooms were under lock and key as no matter was slated for hearing on Monday, but measures to curtail the spread of coronavirus were reflected. In an earlier directive, the Chief Justice of Nigeria also ordered temperature screening of all visitors to the court, and anyone who refuses to be screened should not be allowed inside the court premises. In Abuja, Vera Chumuba, NTA News.
Many thanks, Vera, for that update. We're ready for that. Thanks for staying with us. As coronavirus cases continue to surge, the world records its first animal infection from the virus. Joyce Ometu brings us latest on global developments on COVID-19.
The COVID-19 infections has topped 1.2 million globally. Figures by Johns Hopkins University collated on Monday at 6 p.m. local time show that the novel coronavirus has infected 1,296,934 people and killed 71,263 worldwide, while 272,994 have recovered. United States, the current epicenter of the virus, has had 9,648 confirmed deaths. Let's look at Spain, where the death toll has dropped for a fourth consecutive day. The number of new deaths is 637, the lowest number since March 24. The latest figures show the country also registered 4,273 new cases, bringing the total there to 135,032. Spain has the second highest death toll in the world. It has recorded 13,055 deaths, but new infections and deaths have fallen in Spain and Italy in recent days. In the Middle East, Afghanistan has had its first death of a frontline doctor from the virus. The country has confirmed 367 cases of COVID-19, with 7 deaths. The province of Herat, which borders Iran, is the worst affected. Elsewhere in the world, India's death toll has risen to 118, and the total number of confirmed cases in that country has reached 4,553. The U.S. government has announced the grant of $2.9 million to India to help its efforts against COVID-19. In Asia, reports from Japan say the government is preparing to declare a state of emergency as cases in the country continue to rise. In Tokyo, the number of cases has doubled over the past week to more than 1,000. Let's shift our attention now to Africa, where the virus is affecting 51 countries. A new tally by the African Center for Disease Control collated on Monday, 6 p.m. local time, indicates that there are now 9,198 infections, 414 deaths, and 813 recoveries. Still in Africa, Libya's former interim Prime Minister Mahmoud Jibril has died from the coronavirus. Reports have it that he had contracted the virus in Egypt late March and died at a hospital in Cairo. And Ethiopia's Ministry of Health has announced the country's first deaths as a result of COVID-19. Ethiopia currently has 44 confirmed cases of coronavirus. In other developments, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he is in good spirits after spending the night in hospital as he continues to show persistent symptoms of COVID-19, even as he remains in charge of the government. In other news, there is a warning of a global surge in domestic violence due to the coronavirus restrictions. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is appealing for the prevention of violence against women to be made a key part of the world's response to the pandemic. And lastly, a tiger at the Bronx Zoo in the United States has tested positive for the coronavirus. The tiger named Nadia is believed to be the first known case of an animal infected with COVID-19 in the world. Nadia is thought to have been infected by an asymptomatic zookeeper. And that's a global update on COVID-19. Stay home, stay safe, and stay strong. I am Joyce Ometu.
And you too do stay safe. And back home for us in Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari has given approval for a 500 billion naira stimulus package to keep the economy going after crude prices fell more than half the budgeted benchmark in the wake of COVID-19. Leah Katumba Batunde, who was at the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, now reports.
The year 2020 was one so many people envisaged to be significant, and there were high hopes, but no one expected that a virus called corona was going to come in and dampen global economies, bringing major markets to their knees all around the world, and Nigeria is one of those economies that were badly hit, especially with the falling oil prices.
The decline in international crude oil prices and domestic production may be magnified if a severe outbreak of COVID-19 occurs. Despite ongoing efforts to curtail the spread of the pandemic through compulsory lockdown of Lagos, Ogun, and the FCT, we still have to be very mindful that this can be aggravated.
Now, the president just last week approved a 500 billion naira stimulus package to put the economy back in shape. And given the breakdown, Minister of Finance Zainab Ahmed say the package is essentially to get Nigerians back into their jobs and profit making, and also to assure that there is liquidity in the hands of Nigerians.
Mr. President has also approved that the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning should engage with the Central Bank of Nigeria to agree on a debt and interest moratorium for states and for the federal government on CBN-funded loans in order to create fiscal space for the states and the federation. Accordingly, once average monthly receipts fall below a specific threshold that we and the states will determine, the interest and capital repayments will be suspended till a healthy path is attained.
In Abuja, NTA News.
With the number of coronavirus patients increasing every day, Nigerians have been advised to imbibe the highest level of hygiene practices and stay at home. This is the view of the Deputy National President, Environmental Health Officers Association of Nigeria, Dr. Nuhu Solomon Anyegu. Austin Ayembe will tell us more.
COVID-19 is a global pandemic, with Nigeria so far recording daily increase in infected patients. This has led to several measures taken by governments at all levels to contain the spread. Part of the preventive measures is the stay-at-home order in many cities of Nigeria. The violation of the order by some people is, however, giving environmental health workers serious concern.
We discover that people are neglecting the issue of social distancing. You know, where you see them conglomerating together during weddings and other social gatherings. It is like they do not understand really what we're talking about. And this is very, very important. People should maintain this social distancing of ensuring that you stay at least about 2 meters from every person, because you don't know who may be the carrier of the infection. Since at the early stage, some persons may be asymptomatic, that is, they may not present with any of the signs and symptoms of the disease, which is fever, cough, and difficulty in breathing.
He said the United Nations recognition of Nigeria's effort at containing the pandemic should spur stakeholders involved in the fight to do more.
You know, look at the states of the Federation, different states, Lagos State, Ogun State, even different states of the Federation that have placed, a directive of no movement. It is because they are very serious about it. And they are procuring equipment. They are procuring chemicals for fumigation, for decontamination and disinfection. And all our officers at different states of the Federation are mobilized, and they are doing sensitization and advocacy. I think that is why the United Nations is commending us. That is, if such effort remain sustained.
For now, the appeal is for all Nigerians to adhere to all the preventive measures to stay safe. In Abuja, Austin Anyebe, NTA News.